Hello, everybody. I wish you a good day, a good afternoon, and a good evening, and a big welcome to the final round of the High School spUN Virtual Debates 2022 tournament for May 28, 2022, being held in a hybrid platform at the NSS International Space and Development Conference. Judge Kevin Simons and Judge Jordan Sedgwick will be giving us feedback and announcing the winner at the end of the debate. I'm the moderator and facilitator for this 2022 spUN tournament round, and my name is Radu Morarashu. And also today, Frances Dellutri, the spUN program director, is assisting. I would like, before we start, to read the following statement to you. The winning team is chosen based on their skill and effort and not by any preset NSS positions. NSS clearly believes that humanity should continue to explore, develop, and settle space. However, NSS also believes that an open, honest debate will facilitate that goal. It is very important that space advocates understand and be able to express the anti-space case. No statement by any debater or coach is an official position of the National Space Society. Now, let's meet our debaters. Today, the affirmative position is held by Team Debus, named for Kurt Debus, a German-born American rocket engineer and the first director of NASA's Launch Operations Center. The team is coached by Tammy Ruda. Team Debus, please give us your names and the countries you are representing.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. My name is Mustafa Huck, and I'm from the United States, specifically from Texas.
Hello, my name is Tudor, and I'm representing Romania.
Okay, and I'll go third. Hi, I'm Skylar Martin. I am from South Africa.
Hi, I'm Nicole Portugal, and I'm from Peru.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from Timtzelkowski, which is named for Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, who was a Russian and Soviet rocket scientist who pioneered astronautic theory. Along with the Transylvanian German Hermann Oberth and the American Robert H. Goddard, he is one of the founding fathers of modern rocketry and astronautics. So, the team is coached by Sophia Jones. Team Tolkowski, please give us your names and the countries you're representing.
Hello, I'm David Roth and I represent Romania.
Hello, I am
Alexandria. I'm also from Romania.
Hi, I am Mihai Cherry and I'm also from Romania.
Hello, I'm Andrea Dominguez and I'm from Peru.
Thank you very much, Team Tolkowski, for your presentation. Now, if anyone has a question, please raise your hand in your participants icon on your screen. Please mute your mic unless you are speaking, and only the presenting team and judges should turn on their videos unless directed by the moderator. So let's get started. We'll hear from the first speaker of Team Debus, representing the affirmative position for the 2022 resolution, private sector investment in lunar space development will better serve humanity over public sector investment. Team Debus, your first speaker may begin your affirmative intro, but beforehand, just give me a thumbs up to know that you are ready before we start the timer. Okay, thank you very much. Then you have 4 minutes starting right now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mustafa, and today I'll be the first speaker of the affirmative team. We'd like to thank the NSS spUN debate program managers for the opportunity to participate in these debates, and for the International Space Development Conference for hosting this final round today. Team Debus affirms the resolution. Private sector investment in lunar space development will better serve humanity over public sector investment. We would like to offer the following definitions. The private sector is a part of an economy which is not owned or controlled by the government. The sector is part of an economy with the public sector is the part of an economy that is controlled by the state, composed of all levels of government and government-controlled enterprises. Investment is the outlay of money, usually for income or profit, and the act of giving time or effort to a particular task in order to make it successful. Universalization as an incipient concept describing the next phase of human development, embracing interplanetary relations and much more aggressive exploitation of opportunities that lie beyond the confines of Earth. My team will be presenting 4 arguments. The private sector can have a sharp focus on this process of lunar space development. A private sector NGO would be the best actor to lead lunar space development. Innovation is better achieved in the private sector, and the private sector will bring the benefits of lunar space development to humanity faster. Our first argument is that the private sector will be able to have the sharpest focus on lunar space development. The private sector has the US is pressured into giving NASA less than 1% of the US's budget. Most Americans do not want NASA to get money for reasons such as there are issues on Earth, or we don't get anything out of it. According to a study done in 2018 by the Pew Research Center, only 15% of US adults think sending astronauts to the moon or Mars is a top priority. This scrutiny is not experienced in the private sector. Jeff Bezos can spend his money on whatever he wants, and he chooses it to spend it on Blue Origin. His lofty goals can only be made possible through private investment free from scrutiny. The public sector has so many other responsibilities that they need to consider before investing into lunar space development. For example, when COVID came up, a lot of projects that NASA was doing had to take a step back in order for the US government to focus on fighting the pandemic. For example, the James Webb Telescope had multiple delays before being launched because so many other things were happening in the world at the time, which is a perfect example of why we need to have private sector investment for lunar space development to ensure that we're truly focusing all of the efforts that we can on lunar space development. Our second argument is that a nonprofit or a non-governmental organization should be responsible for lunar space development. An NGO stands for non-governmental organization, which are nonprofit entities independent of any government influence, although they sometimes do receive government funding. They can work to promote social or political change on a broad scale or very locally. The mission of nonprofits is to serve humanity. The basic premise according to the National Space Society, the basic premise of universalization is a shift away from a focus on the globalization of Earth to the governance of the world within the universe, and for outer space to be the next frontier for all. This diversity of humanity can be achieved through nonprofit investment or private investment in lunar space development. Private universities are nonprofits too, and they're some of the greatest centers for innovation in the world.
Thank you very much, Speaker 1, for your introductory speech. Now, the first speaker of Timtzelkowski can begin the 2 minutes cross-examination.
All right, hello. How often does a private company need to show how they spend their money?
Excuse me, could you repeat the question?
Of course, how often does a private company need to show how they spend their money?
It all depends. For example, NGOs file Form 9 in the United States. Nonprofits file Form 990 every year. Some companies that are publicly traded have to publish quarterly reports. It all depends on what type of entity it is and how they're receiving their money.
So private company basically don't have to show their budget. How do you know how the money is spent if they don't have to show their budget?
Excuse
how
me.
Do you know there's no corruption, or how do you know how the money is spent in a private company?
Well, most private companies that focus on space development do show their budget. For example, NGOs and nonprofits, as well as bigger corporations like Boeing. And if money is not being spent properly, investors, stakeholders, and donors won't give their money to these corporations, these private entities. And the same could be said for governments also.
Thank you.
There's a lot of corruption.
Thank you. Next question. What if SpaceX didn't care about sustainability? I mean, Elon Musk, the CEO of SpaceX, does care, but what if don't? Would you trust a private company?
Well, again, it's actually in their best interest to focus on sustainability, because if If the Earth is not sustainable, if they're not following the rules and regulations that the EPA or other organizations have set, they won't be able to practice their business anymore. So it's actually in their best interest to focus on sustainability. So I think they do care about sustainability.
I think the best interest is profit, not sustainability of a private company, right?
In order for them to continue receiving profit, they need to follow the rules and regulations set by the governing body in which they reside in. If they're in the jurisdiction of the United States, for example, they need to follow the rules set by the EPA, or guess what? They don't get any profit. If they're in the—
All right, next question. Where
Thank
do
you
NGOs—
very much, speakers, for the marvelous change of this, the marvelous discussion that you've had. Now, moving on to the first opening argument of Timtzelkowski, -1. You will have 4 minutes for that. 4 minutes that are going to start right now.
All right. Hello, my name is David Roth, and I'm the first speaker of Timtzelkowski. Today, we stand against the resolution private sector investment in lunar space development will better serve humanity over public sector investment. To begin, I'm going to introduce the opposition and the judges, my teammates with whom I have prepared this debate. The second speaker is Alexandra, who is going to present the other two arguments of our team. The third speaker is Mihai, who is going to respond to the arguments from the affirmative side. And last but not least, Andrea will create and present the summary of our arguments and responses. For our first argument, I'm going to talk about universalization and, by extension, investments being done in the name of profit, not in the name of exploration and research. Furthermore, I'm going to elaborate on the possible consequences of private sector corruption influenced by the drive for profit and personal gain. Universalization as a whole refers to the act of or process of making something universal or general. This means that every country, every human being has the same rights and obligations. In the 21st century, one of the main challenges we find when we turn our attention to the private sector is growing inequality that minority groups face. The 2014 study, Privatization and Racial Inequality by Vincent Rossini and George Wilson, find that in the private sector, minorities are more likely to be terminated at the manager's request without a given cause, and unfair treatment in hiring, wages, harassment, promotion, and firing. Other studies written by Reginald I. Bryan, Vincent G. Rossini, and George Wilson present the same issues. Something all of us must agree on is that private companies have the sole purpose of making profit. This means that every action taken by them in space development is related to making profit. As a result, space development becomes disorganized, each company needing to follow its own way of creating income. An article written by Dr. Rajeswari Pillai states that the introduction of private companies in space exploration will only create more satellites and space debris. I quote, "This is a further reason for state actors and major spacefaring countries to come together to frame the rules so that outer space remains a common asset to all humankind." In June 2021, the United Nations released a guidance report on ensuring respect for human rights defenders, which stated that states need to encourage and require business to respect human rights and make sure that the conduct of companies is also respectful. Debbie Stothard, the founder of Alternative ASEAN Network on Burma, a network of organizations working to support human rights defenders, says that, quote, "The reality is that in states where the rule of law is weak and the regulatory framework is fragile, business tend to cherry pick how they do their human rights due diligence." She also states that human rights defenders and civil society at large are experiencing increased counts of strategic lawsuits against public participation from business. In conclusion, this is not a debate about who would faster or more efficiently help in the lunar space development, but which of the two sectors would make this evolution in the purpose of better serving humanity. The public sector needs to obey to laws stated in the space treaties, while the private sector doesn't have any sort of law or obligation that they need to follow in the name of humanity, not profit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to -1. Now, affirmative 1 from Team De Bus. You can start your cross-examination towards -1. You have 2 minutes for that.
All right, my first question is every country in the world democratic?
No.
Okay. So knowing that, in an authoritarian regime, does the public have any input into the decision-making or the budgeting of government funds?
Can you please repeat the question?
In an authoritarian regime, does the public have input into the decision-making of the government?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it's relevant of the. No, you're right. No, they don't.
Okay.
Sorry.
In a country that the government controls most of the media that do call themselves democratic, do you think that the people of that country have an accurate picture of what's happening in the world to make good decisions about what to vote and stuff like that?
I don't see the connection with lunar space development.
Okay. What percentage of the US government has budgeted to, what percent of the US government budget is dedicated to NASA?
1%, like said in your opening.
Okay, and what about how much has the EU dedicated to the ESA?
I don't know the number.
Would you agree that
Exact
it's around 1% similar to the US?
Yeah.
So are we kind of seeing a trend here that governments are not really focused on lunar space development by their budgets?
I think if 1% of the budget is dedicated to the space development, they dedicate money for it. And I don't quite see why you think that not, because 1% of a budget such big as the USA is quite a lot of money.
But is it a priority?
Thank you very much, speakers, for the discussion. Now, moving on to the second speech of Team Debus. Affirmative 2, you will have 4 minutes for that. 4 minutes that are going to start right now.
Okay. My name is Nikki, and I am pleased to continue making the affirmative team's case that private sector investment in lunar space development will better serve humanity over public sector investment. Our third argument is that innovation will be required to secure the benefits of lunar space development, and innovation is best achieved in the private sector. Investing in innovation, which includes research and development, leads to long-term commercial benefits, efficiency, productivity, competitiveness, and ultimately increased sales. Danny Roderick, professor of international political economy at Harvard University, wrote in 2020, "In today's advanced economies, private firms undertake the bulk of research and development. The business sector's share of total R&D spending ranges from 60% in Singapore to 78% in South Korea, with the United States closer than the higher end at 72%. Private sector employees typically receive more opportunities for job advancement because the decision is based on their performance. Engaged employees are innovative and always have an idea or two about what they can do better. The quality of being collaborative and enthusiastic towards work allows them to complete their workplace goals more effectively, which leads to increased workplace productivity. In addition to the benefits coming directly from lunar space, increasing innovation will drive growth in contemporary economies. According to Danny Roderick, living standards here on Earth will be improved as productivity grows and causes the introduction as dissemination of new technologies that allow even wider variety of goods and services to be produced with fewer and fewer of our planet's resources. Our fourth argument is that the private sector will bring humanity the benefits of lunar space development more quickly. The private sector speed advantages come from efficiency and productivity. What makes private companies like SpaceX a game changer in advanced space operations are two strategies: reducing the technological cost of innovation and the tactic of providing multi-vendor options. The California-based firm has not only reduced the cost of sending an astronaut into space, but also brought down the expenditures on spacecraft and program development. Private sector innovation has too much bureaucracy, and this will delay lunar space development. According to Rene Ticinis, NASA has to go through a 9-step process named Technological Readiness Levels, or TRL. Getting through this process could take years or even decades. Consider a simple solid fuel rocket engine. First, NASA will have to develop the full oxidizer mixer for the actual rocket itself and have it go through all 9 stages of the TRL. Russia also tried to get a man on the moon, but it failed by the explosion of the Buran shuttle. After the first flight of a Buran shuttle, the project was suspended due to the lack of funds and the political situation in the Soviet Union. The 2 subsequent orbiters, which were due in 1990, orbiter 1.2, and 1992, orbiter 2.1, were never completed. The public sector is always subject to scrutiny, which limits its actions. Professor Sutton and Gulunik of Stanford University wrote in 1996, consequences for leaders and their organizations include 1, delay of ingoing tasks, 2, attention and effort devoted towards symbolic activities, 3, greater adherence to inducative norms, less adherence to descriptive norms, 4, attention and effort focus on well-rehearsed acts away from acts that require learning or creativity, and 5, greater perseverance at ongoing and planned activity. We have offered 3 reasons that the private sector investment in lunar space development will better benefit humanity. 1, private sector will make the benefits available for more quickly, and private sector will increase benefits by bringing more innovation. And 3, for these reasons, we urge you to vote affirmative.
Thank you very much. Thank you too very much, speaker. Now, we will move to the second cross-examination, the third cross-examination for today, started by Timtzelkowski, so -2. F. Timtzelkowski, you may begin the cross-ex towards Team Debus. Now, you will have 2 minutes for that, starting right now.
Thank you. You mentioned that the private sector has a more better approach on being competitive and competitiveness in general. So are you sure that competitiveness is better than cooperation between companies?
No, but thank you to this competitiveness, private sector has concluded a lot of things than the private sector.
Thank you. Next question. How can we be sure that the private sector has humanity's best interest in mind and not profit?
As I said in my argument, private sector employees typically receive more opportunities for job advancement because the decision is based on their performance. They're not focused in many non-profit things or profit things. They're focused on their skills.
Right. If every private company seeks budget, don't you think that this will make space development become disorganized?
No, because at the moment, there are evidence that they're very organized. As I said, there was, well, in the public sector, we have a lot of disorganization. I also said about the TRL process, it will last a lot longer than the private sector. So there are a lot of lows in the public.
Thank you. But can you mention a source for that? You said that they are organized. Can you mention a source?
I guess we might have some connection issues. Yep. Well, anyway, the time for the cross-examination is over, so maybe until Timtzelkowski will finish the second speech, they will be able to recover from that problem. Then let's hear from the second speaker of Timtzelkowski for presenting their second constructive argument. For that, you are allotted 4 minutes that are going to start right now.
Right, thank you. My name is Alexandria. I'm the second speaker of Timtzelkowski, and today I will explain why the private sector is not a good fit to guarantee the safety of those involved in lunar development. Private companies are known for their main goal, which is to turn a profit mainly. So in order to maximize revenue, companies might cut corners or disregard other safety regulations, which leads to possible harm to the astronauts, employees, and other people involved. Private companies work to achieve certain goals so that they can sustain the market and provide money to their promoters. Simply turning a profit is not the objective. The focus has shifted to maintaining a continuous rise in revenue. As such, they don't hesitate to make tough decisions or take other, sometimes even drastic measures. The privatization of space travel and development poses a great risk, and that is the well-being of astronauts and other employees. Lunar development, as any space development, is an extremely dangerous industry, and any minor inconvenience or error can lead to fatalities and the deaths of innocent people. Therefore, safety regulations and guidelines being respected is absolutely crucial. Space travel companies and any others that require the public's attention and money in order to function might be looking to maximize their profits and secure money from customers who are unfamiliar with the dangers of space. House lawmakers told the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, that the risks of space tourism and other private spaceflight missions must be clearly understood and addressed if the commercial space industry is to succeed. The public needs a clear understanding of the risks involved with commercial space transportation, and it will need to be convinced that those risks are being effectively managed. Balancing risks and safety remains a relevant topic as the private space exploration industry continues to grow. The problem remains there are currently no regulations for private companies such as Blue Origin or SpaceX space flights when it comes to anything from passenger safety to air traffic and environmental pollution. Space law experts say that the industry is still too new to be heavily regulated, and while these companies are subject to reviews before each flight to make sure they won't cause any damage to innocent bystanders, the same doesn't apply to when they're out in space. Space debris, pollution, and traffic problems are just a few of the possible issues you might face if you allow these companies to function without appropriate regulations and laws. There are various examples of commercial missions and other missions led by private companies failing, such as the SpaceX CRS-7 spacecraft as part of the uncrewed Dragon cargo spacecraft mission. A 2019 report from the NASA Airspace Safety Advisory Panel states that NASA has articulated over the years its concern that lessons are learned but not necessarily applied going forward. And I quote, "It was determined that the SpaceX particular subcomponents were not built to spec, but despite that, had passed the qualification testing. In this case, the actual quality of the hardware was compromised in manufacturing, but the commonly used qualification testing did not catch the problems with the hardware. Although integrated testing caught this particular issue, it is a good reminder that supply chain challenges are manifesting across the aerospace industry. Therefore, the private sector cannot be trusted to safely operate in space, which makes the public sector a much better fit for lunar space development." Thank you.
Thank you to Speaker 2. Now, is everything set with Team the Bus? The connection reestablished?
Yeah.
Perfectly. Then we will hear your cross-examination for the second speaker of Timtzelkowski in the 2 minutes allotment. Your time starts right now.
Okay, so has government never had failures?
I didn't say the government never has failure. I'm just saying they're much more common in the case of the private space industry.
Are there any evidence about that?
Yes, as I mentioned, the SpaceX CRS-7 spacecraft, it was a part of the Dragon cargo spacecraft mission, which, if we're to say this in the context of lunar space development, being able to deliver cargo is a crucial part.
Okay. You stated that private sector is too risky before they act.
Yes.
So, okay. So what about Elon Musk helping people in Ukraine?
What about Elon Musk helping people in Ukraine? We are talking about, I don't see how that's relevant to lunar space exploration.
Yeah, but the government could not help.
I'm sure every government has sent a significant piece of help or funding or weaponry, anything towards Ukraine.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I guess that's all for this cross-examination. Then thank you to speakers for this marvelous discussion. Now, before we are moving on to the rebuttal speeches, we will have 2 minutes of prep time. I will ask you in these 2 minutes to turn on your cameras and mute your microphones to see exactly how you're preparing for the marvelous rebuttals that you're going to give. For the prep time, you're going to have 2 minutes. So everybody, please, cameras up. Okay, thank you very much for this. Then you will have 2 minutes of prep time starting right now. Okay, everybody, I guess the time is up, so we will move to the rebuttal speeches. So, Timtzelkowski, so -3, you start the rebuttals and you will have 4 minutes for your speech. -3 of Timtzelkowski, everything okay? So we can start the timer?
Yes.
Perfect. Then your 4 minutes for the rebuttal starts right now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mihai Czelkowski, and I'm the third speaker of the negative position. In this speech, I will first and talk about their argument, and I will end up by highlighting our second argument. To begin, universalization flows to the negative side in this debate because, as mentioned, in the private sector, it's more likely that the minorities will be discriminated. Nowadays, discrimination is no longer tolerated. Private companies still doing that. The 2014 study called Privatization and Racial Inequality by Vincent Rothschild supports that point. Next, I would like to add that no matter what a private company may achieve, their number one target will always be profit, not the people or science. They are also much more disorganized, as David mentioned. Therefore, public companies are a safer option for space development. Our opposition said that private companies have a sharper focus on development, but we have to remember that the number one goal of private companies, as I said, is profit. That's because people don't understand the importance of space development. It doesn't mean that it's not important. It's the same problem with global warming. About 50% of the Americans didn't believe in global warming back in 2010, according to a study. But we all know
Mihai, sorry, I think the audio just fell. Sorry, 1 second. I will pause the timer so that you won't lose your time.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, now we can hear you. Can you hold the microphone a bit closer to your mouth so that we can maybe hear you better to make sure this won't happen again? Sorry for this. Okay,
Do I
then
start again or
you have, sorry?
do I start again or what do I, where? Okay, do you restart the timer?
Okay, well, still you have 2 minutes and 40 seconds remaining from the timer that started a couple of minutes ago. So would you like to continue from there? The judges have noted anything.
Yes.
Okay, then you have 2 minutes and 40 seconds to finish everything up.
Okay. Our opposition said that the private companies have a sharper focus on development, but we have to remember that the number one goal of a private company is always profit. Just because people don't understand the importance of space development, it doesn't mean it's not important. It's the first thing with global warming. About 50% of Americans didn't believe in global warming in 2010, according to a study, but we all know that it was and is real. With the Apollo 11 is the same thing. People thought that it was a waste of public money, but now some people even then knew that it was important. Yes, the first speaker is my teammate about non-democratic countries. But if a country is not democratic, private companies are not allowed to operate as they want as well. The second speaker was asked about the evidence on why companies are disorganized and did not answer. Next, I would like to counter my opponent's second argument. Even though competition is good, if every company has its vision and does whatever they want in the name of profit, the progress might be slowed down. Companies need to have a common goal. Competition is too aggressive in the market right now. They mentioned better workplace productivity. Yes, this might be true, but it also means that people may not be working in a normal, healthy environment. 86% of people at SpaceX reported that their work environment was very stressful or extremely stressful when asked how stressful is your work job environment. This is more than the infamously stressful Amazon. Therefore, even though private companies might be more efficient, they are also not such a good place to work in. Finally, I will end up by highlighting our second argument. The private segment isn't a great fit to ensure the security of those included in lunar advancement, and companies might ignore security controls. The privatization of space travel is a threat of the well-being of space employers, and there were discovered higher cardiovascular and illness in space travels, as Alexandria mentioned. We have to remember that the debate in the first place is about which sector better serves humanity, and the public sector has been doing that better and for far longer than the private sector. Overall, it is clear that the public sector has the hand and is a safer option in the space industry due to our arguments surrounding universalization, evolution, and safety in space. Thank you.
Thank you to Speaker 3 of Timtzelkowski for your rebuttal. Now, moving on directly to the third speech of Team Debus, where they will give their rebuttal in the 4 minutes allotment. Team Debus, are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, then your 4 minutes will start right now.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I am Skylar Martin, the third speaker of the Affirmative Team, and in my rebuttal speech, I will be reaffirming my team's points of why the private sector investment in lunar space development will better serve humanity over public sector investment. Unlike the public sector, the private sector can have a sharper focus on this great endeavor to help mankind become an interstellar species. The public sector has split its attention amongst numerous responsibilities, and when a crisis arises, such as war, famine, or a natural disaster, the government's focus must be averted to that problem. For example, as the first speaker of my team was trying to say with regards to COVID, during this time of COVID, the public sector has invested about 93 billion euros on COVID vaccines and therapeutics in about 11 months, according to Madeleine Hupplin of the Health Policy Watch on the 12th of January 2021. We have been asked to consider today's resolution in the context of universalization. We believe that a private NGO should be responsible for lunar space development, as an NGOs play critical parts in developing society, improving communities, and promoting citizen participation, according to Candid, a leading source of information about philanthropy worldwide. I'd like to highlight the fact that NGOs promote citizen participation. And according to CDOT.org website, an article written on the 20th of August, 2019, about the role of NGOs also acts as a bridge amongst essential stakeholders, especially those who are most affected by government inaction, and appease the policymakers. Other than a few government institutions, it is the nonprofit organizations putting in resources, time, and efforts to fight the social issues and injustices embedded in society. NGOs do not wait for the majority vote and can provide for a needy person or groups of persons. Another political function of NGOs is that they promote individual-led initiatives that impact the whole public. Whatever the problem, whether the health, education, or an emergency, NGOs are present to provide relief to the people timely. Therefore, it is clear that universalization takes place within the private sector with regards to NGOs. And our third argument was that the private sector is a better driver of innovation. And while both sides may be able to bring benefits of lunar space development to humanity, we have clearly shown in our fourth argument that the private sector will be able to do it faster. Now I'll be moving on to my rebuttals again, specifically the negative team. Negative one had stated that the sole purpose of private is to make profit. However, this was not stated in any definitions, and nor were there proper evidence of this given. They talked about human rights, whether the private sector truly cares. However, we have already stated in our second argument that we are replacing an NGO, and the role of an NGO is to look after the people and be responsible there for the people, as I had said previously. As well as this entire argument that we've had on NGOs was dropped by the negative side. They said that private has no obligation against to humanity. Once again, we use the NGOs, and this was not argued against. As stated as well, Elon Musk, by my second speaker, Elon Musk actually helped in Ukraine by providing satellites to provide people in Ukraine with internet when the government, before the government could act, as he belongs to a private company. Again, by the negative speaker, second speaker, profit was mentioned as a goal. There was no evidence, and all was stated in a definition. Drastic measures and risk was also mentioned. However, we are dealing with space here. Now, space is still something unknown to all of us. So risk, I believe, or in this case, is a requirement when learning of something new. Space debris is a problem that is also faced, which they mentioned, and this is known to the private sector as well, as there's examples of people already sorting out this problem. For example, the VASMA rocket created by Ad Astra, which is hoped to help in asteroid deflection. They also mentioned that private companies fail. However, we also have had evidence, and the negative side agreed, that public sector has also failed many times. Therefore, both sectors are in agreement and have the problem of failure.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much.
For the rebuttal. Now, before we will move to the summary speeches, we will have another brief pause of 2 minutes. So again, everybody, cameras up and mics muted. Tudor and Nicole. Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for the cameras. Keep them like that, and you will have 2 minutes for the prep time. Okay, so I guess the time for the preparation is up. So we will move directly to the last speech of the negative team, Timtzelkowski, which is going to give us their summary in the 4 minutes allotment. Speaker 4 of Timtzelkowski, ready to start?
Yes.
Okay, perfectly. Then you will have 4 minutes for your speech, 4 minutes that are going to start right now.
Okay. So firstly, we reaffirm our position against the resolution, and to support our posture, I'm going to go over the points of why we should win. As our first argument discussed, it is complex to achieve universalization when each company follows a different goal and the rules set by themselves. Another point against affirmative posture is that in the private sector, the competition has a significant presence. Consequently, instead of collaborating with the public, private space companies are constantly under pressure competing between each other, neglecting social responsibilities and prioritizing money over the benefits of humanity. Conversely, the public sector seeks to serve humans by providing improvements. The second argument our team discussed was about private companies might cut corners to show efficiency to their shareholders, disregarding other safety measures and enabling accidents with no punishment as regulations for the new private space industry are null. While on the other hand, our team defends the fact that the public sector does prioritize compliance with safety measures, showing a significant interest in maintaining the well-being of its workers. Moreover, the other team stated in their first argument that big goals can be possible through private investment. However, it's important to consider that the money they have available to invest and the amount of profit they must generate, because since profit is significant, private companies do not participate in programs that require a long and considerable time, as those projects do not bring profits back easily. For instance, so far, private companies have just excelled at launching rockets. And why? Just due to the revenue it generates. Plus, long-term projects are precisely the programs that brings the greatest benefits to science and knowledge, thus humanity and its development. On their second speech, the other team exposed that private companies promotes competition, thus innovation. However, competition can be not preferred over collaboration if we want to continue to support the principle of universalization. In addition, to be efficient and quickly with their programs, private companies can't not assure quality and safety of the workers and people involved. And the public sector budget, they mentioned that it's not that big. However, the budget of the public sector is safer because in the case of NASA, for example, it has demonstrated the benefits it provides to society with the budget they are given by the government. While the other team supported their position mainly with the NGOs, it must be considered that private companies and almost most of them are not NGOs, and an argument cannot be structured with exceptions. Besides, the help provided by SpaceX to Ukraine is mainly due to the image the company wants to give to the society in general. Considering everything mentioned, our team concludes that the participation of the public sector is more beneficial in lunar exploration. Additionally, it contributes to the development of space and also of the society. So due to all the reasons we have exposed, and also having into consideration that the public sector has succeeded in measures to ensure the integrity of its workers, it is clear by the arguments and counter-arguments made in this debate that private investment will not serve better for lunar space development. Thank you.
Thank you to Speaker 4 of Timtzelkowski. Now we will move directly to the last but not the least speech of the 2022 SPUN Debates Tournament, this being the fourth speaker of Team Debus, who will begin their 4 minutes summary speech. Speaker 4 of Team Debus, are you ready to start?
Yes.
Perfectly. Then you will have 4 minutes for your summary speech, and you can start right now.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Tudor, and today I will be the fourth speaker of the Affirmative Team. In my speech, I will be providing you with a summary of why I believe that my team has won this debate. My team has provided a list of arguments of why the private sector would be a better fit for this endeavor of lunar space development. First, the private can have a sharp focus on this process. Second, a private sector NGO would be the best actor to lead lunar space development. Third, innovation is better achieved in the private sector. And fourth, the private sector will bring the benefits of lunar space development to humanity faster. First, private companies can have a sharper focus on one single goal or project and put everything they have into it, while the public sector has to divide its attention amongst many different areas. As my teammate provided before, in only 11 months, the public sector has invested about 93 billion euros on COVID vaccines and therapeutics. The private sector can go beyond the immediate needs of humanity to ensure our future and to make sure that space travel is going to be available for everyone. This statement can be further proven by our second argument. This is why an NGO would be the best actor to lead lunar space development, as NGOs play a critical part in developing society, in improving communities, and promoting citizen participation. According to learning.candid.org website, the NGOs are important if we hope to progress as the human race into the unknown of space. In this way, universalization is achieved as people within NGOs, such as volunteers, have a singular human focus on the social, technological, economic, and cultural challenges and opportunities, specifically in this case toward lunar space development. Our third argument is that the private sector is best equipped for innovation. As stated before, according to Daniel Roderick, professor of international political economy at Harvard University, in today's advanced economies, private firms undertake the bulk of research and development. The business sector's share of total R&D spending ranges from 60% in Singapore to 78% in South Korea, with the United States closer to the higher end at 72%. Meaning that the private sector is clearly choosing to apply more resources to innovation in the public sector than the public sector. Finally, in our fourth argument, we provided that the private sector will make all the benefits available more quickly. According to Irene Tsinis, NASA has to go through a 9-step process named technological readiness levels, or TRL, which take years or even decades for new inventions to be approved in the public sector. In their speeches, the negative team provided that private companies focus exclusively on profit, but they provided no evidence for that, and my teammates provided examples such as Elon Musk helping people in Ukraine before the government was able to, and most importantly, our team's second argument is that a private NGO should be responsible for lunar space development. This argument was dropped multiple times by the negative, and we, as the affirmative, have proven in previous speeches that the well-being of humanity is important to NGOs. The negative also did not disagree with our first argument of the private having a sharper focus. I would like the judges to realize that the affirmative team has provided 4 informative arguments of how the private sector is the better suitor for this endeavor, along with defensive arguments, while the negative side has mainly given defensive arguments instead of mentioning much of how they are better than the private. Thank you everyone for this excellent debate, and we ask that the judges vote to affirm the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Speaker Fall, and thank you to all the debaters for the awesome speeches presented. Now, Mr. Simons and Mr. Stedwick, we will give you a couple of minutes to give your decision and your feedback. Is it okay, like 5 minutes? Okay, perfectly. So in 5 minutes, we'll be right back with the feedback and the final decision.
This has been quite a great debate. I'm Frances Dellutri, the program manager of spUN Debates and the NSS Director of Education. It has been a marvelous experience for me to work with 13 different countries and over 200 debaters since our first inception 4 years ago. We started from the International Space Development Conference in St. Louis, Missouri in 2017. And an address was offered by Dr. L.J. Edmonds about universalization and how this will extend into space. There were two Indian students there, Apurva and Surik. I hope they're seeing us on the streaming here. And they were having this very animated discussion about the possibilities. And I asked if I could come into that discussion, and they very generously allowed me to do that. And through that conversation, we talked for I would say about another hour. We talked about, wouldn't it be interesting if we brought a debate to students to figure out how we're going to live and work and be successful in space? And that's how this was born. You debaters across the world have impressed me for 4 years. This year, we drew from 5 countries, and the debaters were marvelous. I want to tell you a little bit about the program. This program takes, you go to spaceedge.academy. We open the applications in about November. That's our plan still this year. We have an application process. And then from there, we choose people we think would be quite good. And they are entered into online courses. So if you've never had an opportunity to debate, you don't know a thing about it, this would help us to know how we can help you move forward. Then the next thing is to take a look at that participation in the online courses and how you did. And we pair you with professional coaches. Each team is having about the same skills available. There's some people who have never debated, some people who are veterans through our program or through their local areas, so that the teams are pretty well equalized in terms of the abilities. Those professional coaches then help you prepare for that particular resolution, and we get a product that we see today. So I hope that next year I will see some of you debating with us. I would like to have a show of hands, and to get it on the screen, you'll have to hold your hand up really high for those folks in the audience, those students in the audience who actually were part of the debates in this year, in 2022. Can you hold your hands way up high so they see? Very good. Of course, we have some folks online who are watching these proceedings. Thank you very much. I would like to now have a show of hands for anyone who has debated in the SPUN debates. Hold it up high, hold it up high. It's really great. So these SPUN debates allow, they take hours of preparation. This is outside the school, the teachers, we ask for a recommendation for the teachers. And we don't need to contact your teacher again unless there's a little difficulty with contacting you or responding. But mostly I'm seeing tremendously responsible students get involved in this. So I would encourage you, if you thought this was kind of interesting and you think it's maybe a little intimidating, how would I do this? We have some people up here who had never debated before last year. I see as veterans this year, they had a very strong showing. So you too can do this, and we hope to see your application next year. And one thing this offers is not only are we talking about how to live and work in space and be successful in space, but we are getting a world view. So as things happen here on this earth, they affect everyone. And we see that brought into the debates, as you saw in the discussions today, as well as during those training sessions. It is a very eye-opening experience. So I just wanted to encourage you to take a look for that, and that will be in about the 1st of November when we will open those applications for the 2023 year. Okay, and they will be virtual. We hopefully have a hybrid event such as this at ISDC in Los Angeles next year. So you will not have to be present for it, but you can still debate just as we have here. Thank you. Radu?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Dellutri, for this intervention. It was very welcomed. Good. So now I guess that the time's up. Judges are ready? No. You're not. Okay, then we will have a couple more minutes. Do you have any idea how many? Entertaining the audience. Very good piece of advice. Okay, then Francis, let's. Okay.
I think we've got a wonderful moderator here, and he's been through this program. So maybe tell us a little about your story of how you came through the program and what you're doing now with the program.
Well, okay, this is unexpected. Well, I firstly participated in the SPUN debates about three years ago in 2020, the first virtual debates that we've had due to the pandemic. I've been in 3 different teams. I worked with people from different countries, lots of different countries. Like I've had teammates from the United States. I've had teammates from India. I've had teammates from Peru, from China, and also some folks from Romania, because I'm Romanian too. And yeah, it was a very interesting experience that we've had over here throughout these years. It was an awesome opportunity. We've learned lots and lots of new things. We've discussed the topics related to space, and sincerely now these topics are very important to be discussed, because space is going to be pretty much the future of humanity. And so it's very interesting to have people with whom you can have a discussion on these topics, especially because most of the people here are really passionate about what they do, are very, involved in the program itself. And it was a very interesting experience. And I think I will say that in the name of all the debaters that have ever participated in the debates. Thank you very much, Francis, for this awesome opportunity that you offered us, you, Purva and Savik. And related to what I do now in the program, as you can see right now, I am moderating. And yeah, this year, thinking that I was a bit of a veteran, I guess, for the last 2 years in which I participated in the competition. This year, I was a part of the organizatory team. And yeah, I'm very happy to see the final going on right now and to see the marvelous debates that took part into these awesome contests. So yeah, pretty much that's it. Now, judges, are you ready with the decision and feedback? Perfect. Then you will have about 5 minutes to offer the feedback and to announce the winner of the 2022 SPUN debates.
First of all, my fellow judge and I, it's interesting, we didn't speak during the judging, but our results were similar and our observations lined up pretty nicely. So I'm happy to have at least consensus with my colleague here. First of all, I thought both teams were well prepared. I really enjoyed the delivery was solid on every speaker. Some were slightly better than others, but the delivery, the organization, the points made were very understandable, and even for someone not in the space. So I enjoyed the ease with which you could follow along with the argument. The first 2 rounds, AF1, neg1, AF2, neg2, I really thought that the AF folks were strong, but I thought that neg1 and neg2 definitely were a little bit better, definitely on the side of persuasion. I do want to point out, I thought AF2 gave some good historical evidence, but for me, I thought neg2 and neg1, they were a little more persuasive. And on the back half of the competition, I found it very interesting. And again, there were some very persuasive speakers. And my point totals, just to give you an idea, it was 203 to 202 for me. So that's how close it was. And I didn't realize it was that close until I added them up. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague to wrap it up.
Okay. So first of all, I want to say that y'all all did a great job. It's so impressive that you're even here and that you want to do this and you have this passion, you're putting in this extra effort to do what you're doing. So you should all be very proud of yourselves. I agree. I mean, our scoring was very similar. I agree that in the first set of debaters, affirmative 1 and affirmative 2, and -1 and -2, -1 and -2, they kind of took it. We have to give that to them. They did a great job. Affirmative, y'all did a great job as well. I think that a lot of the difference seemed to come down to preparation and specificity, and that also impacts your delivery. And so, you know, as y'all go forward and compete in more competitions, just be considerate of that. Also, and this is for everyone, all of you were clearly reading, which I understand that's part of, you know, a digital debate, but at least try to make it look like you're not reading when you're looking down into the bottom of the camera and we can see your eyes scanning and we can hear you clicking through pages. That's not, you're not coming across with authority when we see that. For the second set of debaters, -3 and -4 and affirmative 3 and affirmative 4, have to give that one to the affirmative side. Y'all all did a great job, but again, they just were the more clear and appeared to be the more well-researched team and a little bit more prepared. Overall, my score was affirmative 263 and -258. And so we are in consensus that the affirmative side has won this debate. Congratulations.
Okay, a big round of applause for both teams that did marvelously in the final round of the SPUN Debates 2022. So congratulations to everyone that participated, to all of the debaters from this year. So please, everybody, turn the cameras up for the final remarks. And again, congratulations to everyone. You did a great job, guys. You were awesome. Great. Excellent job, everyone. Thank you to judges for the decision made. And now, again, thanks everybody for participating in the 2022 SPUN Debate Tournament. The information on the June 25, 2022 awards event will be forthcoming. The SPUN Debate program would not be possible without the student debaters, coaches, hosts, moderators, and of course, judges. So we offer many special thanks to everybody that participated. Also, we offer lots of appreciation to NSS President Michelle Hanlon and the students from the Exploration and Development of Space for their support. This being said, thank you everybody for all you did in the SPUN Debate program. We really appreciate every single thing that everybody did. Also, we are delighted to have had the opportunity to stream and also present the SPUN Debate, even though it's still virtual, here at the ISDC in Washington, DC. So this being said, thanks a lot, everybody, again, and goodbye, everyone. Good.